Welcome to the Metal Voice. Today on the show, the one, the only, Mr. Frankie Banali of Quiet Riot. What's going on, Frankie?
Yay! Just sitting out here in LA, prepping up for some more Quiet Riot shows.
The new live album, and I'm holding it here, and you can't see me hold it, of course. One Night in Milan, Quiet Riot. I'm a huge Quiet Riot fan. I've always have been since I was a young kid, and I got to tell you, Frankie, I'm really impressed with the CD. It kind of merges the old with the new, the old school with the new school. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, we recorded it last April 28th of 2018 in Milan, and when the kind folks at Frontiers approached me about playing the festival and also wanted to know if I would agree to have it recorded, it was going to be Quiet Riot's first time performing in Italy, so that was special. But I also wanted the label to understand that I'm a real big believer in, if it's going to be a live record, it has to be a live record. And I'm also a really big believer in the guys in the band, Chuck Wright on bass and Alex Grossi on guitar and James Durbin on vocals, that we could do a live show and not have to go into the studio and fix things. And of course, in a live situation, and especially using somebody else's equipment, and there's always going to be, a little hiccup here and there. But that notwithstanding, a live record by definition it happened as it was without any fixes.
Yeah, live without a net. I think that's a quote from you inside the CD.
Yes.
There you go.
Absolutely. And I didn't even let the guys know that I had opted not to fix anything until the morning of that show.
Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of bands, and they do live albums, and it's kind of scary, right? You're recording, you don't want to screw up, you want it to be a good representation. Does it make you a better player, being a little nervous, or I don't know?
Well, it's not even a question of that. Everything about Quiet Riot since I joined the band when I first started working with Kevin in 1980, the band always revolved around live performances. Of course, at the time, we were hoping we were going to get a record deal, which obviously we did, and have been very successful at various levels over the years, over the decades. But everything always revolved around being the best and tightest live band we can possibly be. And one of the deals that I make to my guys is I always tell them, play to the best of your abilities, because not everyone plays great every single night, but as long as you go out there and try, I think people can see that. I think people can hear that. I think people can feel it. Yeah. And I stuck to my guns.
By the way, I really enjoyed it. Being a Quiet Riot fan, I think it's a great representation of the band's history and sort of, bringing the new band, we'll call it, with the old, the merging of the two. I don't know if that's kind of like how you look at it.
Yeah. Yeah, I do look at it that way, and that is also reflected to some degree by the set list I put together. Obviously, and especially since it was the first time we were playing in Italy, and there was a lot of fans that were coming from all over Europe for the show, because that's the only show we did in Europe in 2018. Obviously, I made sure that it included all the songs that I think they wanted to hear. Quite a few off the Mental Health record and some things off of Condition and QR3. But at the same time, I wanted to give some special notes in there, which is why we did one deep track from the Down to the Bone record, Whatever It Takes, and then we also did the title track of the 1993 Terrified, and at the same time also threw in two of the songs, Freak Flag and Can't Get Enough, which represented the most recent studio release from Quiet Riot.
Good move. And I really dug Thunderbird, with the piano. I thought that was a very nice touch.
Yeah, that was really nice. I had already had a working experience with Alessandro Del Vecchio, who was the keyboard player on that particular track live, and he also produced and recorded and engineered the live track. So we already had a personal friendship and working relationship, and he was very thrilled when I asked him if he would do that. And I thought it would be a fun thing for the band to do because we've never done it live with the piano. But I also thought it was something really special for the fans. So I seized the opportunity.
Yeah. Also, I should have noted right at the beginning that Heavy Montreal, you guys will be playing at Heavy Montreal this year in 2019. I think it's at the end of July sometime. And the album was released January 25th on Frontiers Music, One Night in Milan. Are there any other archived Quiet Riot, Kevin Dubrow era, I guess we'll call it, live albums? I mean, I know you've put out a few over the years, but do you have a lot of other material that you've played live that you're going to be releasing in the near future?
Well, I have a lot of Quiet Riot material, studio material that was recorded, as well as live things that were recorded. The problem is with releasing something like that is that it just gets bootlegged to such a degree that it's almost pointless. I mean, you have to go in and go through the masters, and if the tapes are really old, you have to bake the tapes. I mean, there's a lot of time, there's a lot of expense, there's a lot of expertise that goes into it, and then you release it, and I understand the fans want to hear it, but then it gets bootleg out there. There's sites that'll just rip it off, and then they have their subscriptions and they're making money off of it, and the artist isn't. So I'm not that inclined to do so at this point in time.
Jimmy K here, Metal Voice. Look at this. The Metal Voice shirts are now on sale. Just go to the video description to find out on how you can purchase one. Metal! Actually, I wanted to ask you about Thunderbird. When Randy Rhoads was originally supposed to play on that song, did he actually hear Thunderbird before?
No, here's the chronology of it,
okay.
And a lot of people, understandably so, have a mistaken idea of how the song and why the song was written. Kevin Dubrow originally wrote the song not about Randy's passing, but about Randy leaving the first version of Quiet Riot in 1979 to join Ozzy's band. So Kevin had already asked both Rudy to come in and play and Randy to come in and play specifically on Thunderbird, and Randy had agreed to do so. It wasn't until Randy's untimely passing that Kevin rewrote the last verse to reflect, the Randy's death. But Randy was indeed scheduled to come in and play on that track.
But he never, and we're talking about before, the incident, he never heard the song, right? He never had an inkling of what the song was, what it sounded like.
That I don't know. I would imagine that he didn't, because we hadn't demoed the song until after Randy had passed. So I don't think he would have had an opportunity to have heard it. But I could be wrong, but I seriously doubt it. That would have been a great question for Kevin Dubrow that, to my knowledge, no one ever asked.
I was also reading on the internet that Kevin Dubrow's home was robbed, after his passing. I mean, was this true? Mm-hmm. Did they take the archive material?
No, his home was robbed actually twice after he passed away. Fortunately, because I started managing the band in 1993, all the archives have always been with me. What they stole were personal effects, clothes, a lot of his CD collection, and a lot of his vinyl collection. I think they basically stole things that they could sell.
Okay, so because I know that Kevin Dubrow, and I remember this, he was working on part 2 of the Randy Rhoads, or the old Quiet Riot, the re-recordings of, and he said he had another album ready, and he also had some videos ready.
Yeah, no, none of that stuff was resting at that time at his house. For a long period of time, Kevin and I had a professional facility that all of this material was stored at. And then after his passing, that facility was actually going out of business, and I retrieved all the material and in turn took it to another secure facility. So no,
Okay,
none of that
good.
stuff
Good
is
news. Good
missing.
news. Will we ever see that stuff, the light of day? Would that ever come out?
Difficult to say. I mean, I'm trying not to say never about anything anymore.
Frankie, I'm a big fan. That's why I'm
So
asking. I'm asking because I'm a fan. That's why.
yeah. All I can tell you is at this point, there's no plans to do so. I wouldn't rule it out, but at the same time, it's not something that's on the forefront of any kind of movement.
Okay, and you've secured Quiet Riot 1 and Quiet Riot 2, the original ones that were baked for. Those masters are still alive somewhere?
Those masters are alive and well.
Okay, good to know. For the fans, because maybe one day, who knows, right? One day, right? You never know.
You just never know.
You just never know. Oh, all right. So the documentary, huge success. I love the documentary. Any chance of doing another documentary on a different angle?
I don't know. I don't know if it's something that I would want to revisit. I mean, you have to remember there was 35 years worth of history, and that's not including the years of the first version of the band
Yep.
that were covered in the documentary. I don't think I'm going to live long enough to warrant having a part two.
All right. Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. What about? So I read in the press recently that you're working on a new album, which is exciting. Can you
Yes.
tell me anything about that? The process? What process? What stage you're at?
At this point, all the drums, bass, and guitar tracks are done. About half of the vocals are done, so it's a matter of finishing the other half of the lead and background vocals, and then the mixing process will start.
Do you think it'll be released before Heavy Montreal in July?
Oh no! There's it takes a really long lead time. I mean, we're still working on the art and all of those components. So I think best case scenario fall, worst case scenario early next year.
So the band went from different styles. It started off with the anthemic, rah rah, come on, feel the noise, and it went maybe to more of a metal sound. And then, with Rehab, you guys more of a blues sound. Where are you going to take it this time in terms of style? Are you going back to anthems, blues, hard rock, metal? Where do you see it going?
Well, I can only tell you from my perspective that it is the most varied Quiet Riot record that I have ever worked on. So I think it's going to cover a lot of bases. I think it's going to surprise a lot of people, and I hope it'll be a pleasant surprise. But again, it's the most varied record that I think Quiet Riot has ever done. My consideration, always is not because I have to, but because of the way I am. My first consideration when I'm writing something, and when I write together with my writing partner Neil Citron, is would Kevin Dubrow like this?
Yeah, that's
and the greatest thing about Kevin is he was so open-minded, and he had such a broad taste in music that there were very few things that he didn't like. And for instance, on the Rehab record, some of the things that Neil and I wrote, Kevin really liked, but it was not in his comfort zone, which is why we went out and had some of the lyrics co-written by Glenn Hughes. So, but again, a lot of credit goes to Kevin, where, I could play him a song and he would love it, and he would say, I don't know what to do with this, but that did not make it impossible for it to be on the record. So that continues with the future Quiet Riot studio release.
very cool. And I also know that, or at least I also read that you used to watch Quiet Riot back in the Starwood days. What did you think of the band?
Oh,
back
who,
then?
me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to go see them, and I'll be perfectly honest. The main reason I used to go see them, especially at a club called the Starwood,
Yeah.
is because they drew more girls than any other band I had ever seen. So
Okay.
so that was my first priority. My second priority, but it's a close to one second priority, was the fact that Randy Rhoads was the most amazing unknown guitarist that I had ever heard. He was incredibly talented, but he was an incredible showman. He was like the complete and total package. And then Kevin was the most energetic singer I had ever seen. I mean, he was all over that stage, and the way he dressed and the way the band presented themselves, they actually have production when local bands, for the most part, never had production before. So it was a great package. And then, of course, Rudy Sarzo at that point had joined the band. He was the bass player in the band at the time. And, we're now talking, late 70s, but Rudy and I had known each other since 1972. So there were a lot of great reasons for me to go see the first version of Quiet Riot. There were no bad reasons. They were all great reasons.
Did you ever become friends with Randy Rhoads at the time, or did you hang out with him?
I knew Randy, and the funny thing about Randy, I mean, the guy never didn't have a guitar in his hands. He constantly had a guitar in his hand. He constantly was working on something. He could hold a conversation with you and be very engaging and very endearing, but the entire time, half his brain was working on something musical on that guitar. But I owe both Randy and Rudy Sarzo a debt in that Randy, after he left Quiet Riot, he told Kevin he should get me. He says, and Kevin told me the story. He goes, Frankie has this big sound. You really should work with Frankie, which is the same thing that Rudy Sarzo told Kevin. So I owe them both a debt of gratitude for pointing me in Kevin's direction.
That's very cool. And I guess as a fan question, did you ever think about re-recording maybe a few tracks from the first original Quiet Riot album? Bring it to today's production?
I think if Kevin was still alive, and if Kevin would have been into doing it, I think that would have been the time to do it. As a matter of fact, the only reason that Slick Black Cadillac ended up on the Mental Health record is because that was my favorite song that the first version of the band played live, and I really insisted on recording it for the record. And Kevin initially didn't want to, and he finally, I think, just said yes, so I was shut up. But Kevin was not particularly inclined to go backwards, meaning to redo some of the material. We did a couple of the earlier Quiet Riot songs live when we first started playing after the release of the Mental Health record, purely because we didn't have an hour's worth of material, and so we were doing it. We did Back to the Coast and I think Killer Girls on a very limited basis. Kevin was not a fan of those two records, those first two records. So, but if there would have been a time to do it, would have been when Kevin was alive, and if he would have agreed to it.
And what about James Durbin? I guess going to today, as a songwriter, is he going to be contributing to the new studio album?
No, he does write, and he has a solo career that he also pays a lot of attention to. On the Road Rage record, Neil Citron and I wrote all of the songs, all of the music that's on that record, with the exception of one song, which the music was written by Alex Grassi, but all the lyrics on the Road Rage record were written by James. James is doing some writing on this record as well. So as far as lyrics are concerned, so yeah, he's definitely an active part of the writing process insofar as lyrics and vocal melodies and background vocals, things like that go.
That's good to hear. So there you go. Heavy Montreal 2019, the new album, the new live album's out January 25th, and we expect a new album either before the end of this year or next year. Correct?
Yeah, if I can get it released this year before 2019 ends, I definitely that's what I'm targeting. Worst case scenario 2020, but let's shoot for 2019.
Good. That's pretty much it, my guest, Frankie Banali, Quiet Riot.
Hey, thank you so much for your time, and I really, really appreciate both your passion for music and your friendship and your support of Quiet Riot. It means the world to me, so I really do appreciate that.
At Heavy Montreal, I'd love to do a video interview with you, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, I'd be more than happy. Just find me, and we'll get it done, and then I'll buy you a few pints. All right?
Okay, Frankie. All right, talk soon, man. Have yourself a great day.
All right, you take care. Thanks for the call.